Good afternoon from Big Sky Country. I'm Stacy, owner of Montana Used Bricks. And today is another one of those this and that type videos. I don't really have a really long topic, but I do have a couple of little topics I just wanted to talk about. And the first one is something that I have seen asked on forums and groups and have been personally asked a lot of times. And that is, what parts sell the best? I'm going to tell you right now, if you ask 10 Bricklink sellers what parts sell best in their store, you're going to get 10 different answers. It really has nothing to do with the parts. It has to do with the buyers and what the buyers are looking for. A good example of this for me would be that for years I was basically collecting tires and wheels. At one point I probably had about 800 to 900 tires and 800 to 900 wheels. And I was getting to the point where I was thinking, man, what am I going to do with all these? Am I going to have to put them on sale? Just start throwing them in orders as free gifts? Because there was a lot of them and taking up a lot of space. And then one day, out of the blue, a buyer came into my store and bought me out of both. I don't know what he was using them for or why he wanted them, but I was happy to sell them. Other times, stuff will sit in my store since we opened, and all of a sudden somebody will come in and buy every one of that part or lot. It varies, so it's so hard to tell people, yeah, you really want to focus on these parts because you may end up with those in your store for the next 5 years before you get somebody to buy them. So are there certain parts that do sell quicker than others? Yes. The light bluish gray, especially in the bricks and plates, tend to sell fairly well, as do the dark bluish gray, just because people are usually working on Star Wars sets. Minifigures generally sell really well, especially the licensed figures like from Harry Potter, Marvel, DC. People usually buy those rather quickly. They'll also buy some of the city minifigs or older minifigs that are harder to find, like the castle and some of the space minifigures. But then again, some of that stuff sits in the store. I've also found that some parts that aren't made as much anymore or just aren't made anymore will sell rather quickly. The magnets that they use to link the trains generally sell pretty quickly in my store, as do things like the strings with studs, nets, things that are a little bit harder to come by will tend to sell fairly quickly in my store. But those are parts that I don't always have on hand. I'm lucky when I get them, I put them into stock, and they sell rather quickly. But like I said, it really depends on what the buyer is looking for. If you happen to have the right variety and amount of parts that a certain buyer is looking for, they're going to come into your store and they're going to buy those parts. So to answer that question is really difficult. And I think you just need to have a wide variety in your store, and after a while you'll get a feel for what sells quickly and what doesn't. But unless you have that in your store, you may never see what does sell and what doesn't sell. Some other things that do sell fairly quickly are Bionicle parts. When I first opened my store, they were not that popular, but the last couple of years Bionicle parts have had a resurgence, and they generally don't stay in my store very long anymore. So as a seller, if you have certain parts that you know sell and you look for those parts when you're bidding on Lego lots or when you're buying new sets, put it down in the comments below, because I would be interested what sells in your store versus mine. In my store, it's all over the place. It could be anything at any time. Like I said, some stuff stays in inventory forever, and then I have other things that I can put in and they'll sell within 2 or 3 days. And then I'll have people that will come in and buy me out of stuff that I've been basically stockpiling for 5 years. It's hit or miss. I can never tell. So something else I get asked a lot, and I get asked this a lot by mainly coworkers and friends. How much time do you spend on your Lego business? And I have never really sat down and figured out how many hours during the week. So this week, Monday through Friday, I jotted down notes on when I started and when I stopped just to see. And this week was the exception to the rule because I actually didn't work that much this week. I had other things going on. I wasn't feeling well. I suffer from migraines, and this week was really bad with migraines, so I haven't done as much with the business this week as I normally do. So Monday through Friday this week, I put in 12 hours, and most of that time was in the mornings before I went to work. I generally come out here between 5:30 and 6, and then I'll work until about 6:35, 6:40, and then I'll grab my gear and get to work by 7. I only live a couple miles from work. My commute's very short, so I'm blessed with that. There were a couple of evenings I came out and worked before and after dinner, but for the most part, once I'm off work, I come home, work on orders, do a little bit of inventory, and then once dinner's over, then that's my time to spend with my husband. Unless he's watching football, then I will come back out here and work on inventory until it's bedtime. I'm going to try to keep track of this for the next couple of weeks to get an idea how much time I do spend on the business. This weekend is another exception to the rule of not doing much with the business, because we do have another event for the organization that I volunteer for, so that's going to be taking up most of my day, and tomorrow will be used to edit this video plus do my normal Sunday chores. So I probably won't get as much time on the business as I normally do. I'll be spending my time just processing the orders that come in this weekend. If you'd like, go ahead and put in the comments how much time you estimate you spend on your business during the week. Are you one of those lucky sellers that get to sell full time, or are you like me and you still have to put your 40 hours in at one job and then try to squeeze in Bricklink before and after those 40 hours? I had someone in the comments ask if I'd ever had a buyer be upset or react badly to not having one of the parts they ordered. And I don't think I really have. I've had to work with some people just to make sure that they were satisfied by the end of the transaction. But I would say that most buyers understand that it's really hard to keep track of thousands and thousands of little tiny parts, and it's very easy for a part to get lost in your own store, to miscount or even miscatalog, which I've done lots of times, done the wrong part or the wrong color into inventory. And I can't say I've ever had anybody react badly. I've had some people that were upset. When I first started this, I had a lady that was very rude, but she had every right to be, because I was missing quite a few parts that she requested, to the point that my husband and I went through, and this was early on and it was really easy to do, but we did a really quick audit to make sure that we had the parts that we said we had. I don't think, as hard as I try, I will ever have my store perfect. We do try to have all the parts that we say we have, but like I said, it's really easy to get them into the wrong drawer, to have the wrong color, or just miscount or put it in wrong when I put it into Brickstore and it gets uploaded incorrectly. If you go to my store, you'll see that I do have some neutral feedback because I was missing parts, but most of those are from buyers that never contacted me and didn't give me the opportunity to correct whatever error was in their order, so I don't even know what was wrong with it. But I think as long as you communicate with the buyer and you treat the buyer the way you would want to be treated as a buyer, then I think you have that mutual respect, and I don't think anybody's going to react too badly. It's always a fear every time I'm missing a part and I have to let a buyer know that I'm missing the part. My heart sinks, because my first thought is, oh my gosh, this is going to be my first negative. Same thing when I get a message from somebody, even before I open the message, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I screw up? I love getting the messages that are just nice, saying, hey, it was a great order, which I've had in the past. It always bothers me when I know I messed up, because the buyer put their trust in me that they were going to get the parts that they ordered. And as somebody who can kind of be a bit of a perfectionist, it does bother me a lot. But I've heard on other YouTube channels that sellers get that same sinking feeling that I get when you see that little message icon. So I don't feel as bad, because I know that they go through the same thing that I do. And how you handle it and how you respond to it and how you communicate says a lot about you and your store. And I think as long as you communicate and you're polite and don't give any excuses, say, I'm sorry, and this is what I'm going to do to fix it. Don't try to put excuses in there. Don't go, oh, I had a bad day, or oh, I must have had too much coffee, or don't give the excuses, because the buyer doesn't care. What the buyer cares about is how are you going to fix that order? So focus on that. Always apologize and tell them what you're going to do to fix it. And I would say that 95% of the time, you're going to have a positive outcome from that. So one last part to this video is I had several comments about the hydrogen peroxide treatment. For those of you that don't know, you can whiten up faded white parts by putting them in a jar or a clear container with some hydrogen peroxide, putting it in the sun for several hours, and then they will be whitened up. And it does work, but for me, it only worked temporarily. After a while, the parts faded, and they faded worse than they were before I did this treatment. And it doesn't work for me, but since I made that comment in one or two of my videos, I have watched other sellers that say they still do this treatment. So now I'm starting to wonder if maybe I'm just not using the right brand or type of hydrogen peroxide, or maybe I'm just leaving them in the sun too long, not long enough. I don't know, but I do know that because it doesn't work for me, I'm not going to be doing that treatment anymore. But if you have some parts that you're willing to ruin, so to speak, then you could probably test this out for yourself. Set them aside for 2 or 3 weeks and then take them out and see if they're still white or if they've yellowed. Because I'm actually tempted to maybe try this myself and maybe try some different brands or different types of hydrogen peroxide to see if it happens, and maybe it doesn't with all brands. I guess what I'm trying to say is my videos are here to help you. I'm not trying to say this is the way to do it, because there are 50 million ways to run your Bricklink store. There's hundreds of ways to deal with your parts, how to store them, how you want to catalog them. Everything is up to you. That's what's so great about the Bricklink store. So I hope that these videos help you in some way, and that you get at least some ideas on maybe what you can do, or take what I do and go, I'm never doing that. That's fine too. I've watched some videos where people do stuff and I'm like, I don't think I'll be doing it that way. But it is interesting to see how other people do it and see what you can incorporate into your own store. So that's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give it that thumbs up. If you really enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.